The Montana sun burned bright over the dusty horizon, its golden rays blanketing the open plains where the state's annual shooting championship was in full swing. Competitors gathered from every corner of the region, their trucks lined up outside the expansive shooting range. Sleek, black cases were opened to reveal state-of-the-art rifles, polished to perfection, with custom grips, high-end scopes, and everything else a top-tier marksman could want. Spectators filled the viewing area with eager faces, ready to witness another year of thrilling sharpshooting. Among the crowd was a girl who didn't seem to fit. Emma Carter, 17, wore faded jeans, a plaid shirt with sleeves rolled up to her elbows, and scuffed cowboy boots. Her long braid hung over one shoulder, and slung across her back was a basic bolt-action hunting rifle. Nothing flashy, just well-maintained and deeply personal. It had once belonged to her grandfather, who taught her everything she knew about shooting back on their family farm. Emma and her father, John, had driven 3 hours in their rusted pickup just to get here. It had taken weeks of saving just to afford the entry fee. John was hesitant at first, unsure if his daughter would be welcomed, or worse, laughed at. But Emma had insisted. "Let them laugh," she said, her tone calm but firm. "I'm not here to impress. I'm here to shoot." As she stepped onto the range, the whispers started almost immediately. A couple of spectators glanced at her, nudging each other and chuckling. A group of competitors eyed her with thinly veiled amusement. "What's she doing here?" someone muttered. "Must be somebody's little sister tagging along." Even the range officer raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure you're registered, miss?" he asked. Emma handed over her paperwork without a word. She had expected this. She was used to being underestimated. Meanwhile, her father stood just behind the spectator barrier, hat in hand, scanning the crowd. He spotted Brad Carson, the reigning state champion and minor celebrity in the shooting world, laughing with his fellow competitors. Brad had the looks of a cowboy movie star and the confidence to match. With his $1,000 rifle, he strutted like a man who'd already won. The first round began. Shooters took turns firing at distant targets, with each round increasing in difficulty. Brad went first, delivering a flawless sequence of shots, dead center every time. The crowd cheered, already expecting him to walk away with another gold medal. Then came Emma's turn. She walked calmly to her spot, adjusted her grip, and took a deep breath. Her hands were steady. She'd spent countless hours shooting cans, crows, and even bottle caps off fence posts. Her grandfather had taught her not just how to aim, but how to focus, how to control her breath, block out the noise, and treat every shot like it mattered more than the last. She raised her rifle, looked through the scope, and waited for the wind to ease. Then she fired. The sound cracked through the air. The bullet traveled straight and true, striking the dead center of the target. A few people in the crowd leaned forward. Maybe it was luck. She fired again. Another perfect hit. A third time, then a fourth, and then fifth. Now the crowd was silent. Brad lowered his sunglasses and stared. The range officer blinked. This girl in boots and braids had just matched the highest score of the day, without blinking, flinching, or showing even a hint of stress. Emma stepped back, not saying a word, and returned to her spot. John gave her a small nod, pride in his eyes. She nodded back, a flicker of a smile playing on her lips. The announcer's voice came over the loudspeaker. "We have a tie in the lead between Brad Carson and newcomer Emma Carter. We'll proceed to a sudden death shoot-off." Sudden death meant one target, one shot. Whoever hit closest to the bullseye would take the trophy. Brad went first. He took his time, posed a little, then fired. A sharp shot. The bullet landed almost perfectly in the center. The crowd clapped and cheered. "Hard to beat that," someone whispered. Emma took her place next. She kneeled slightly, adjusted the old strap on her rifle, and waited. The breeze picked up for a moment, then stilled. She didn't breathe. She didn't blink. Bang! The target reeled back from the impact. The judge walked up to examine the marks with a magnifier. After a long pause, he lifted his arm and pointed at Emma's mark. "Closer to center by 0.5 millimeter." The crowd erupted. Some people clapped, others gasped. A few of the same men who had scoffed earlier now stood with their mouths open. Emma didn't cheer. She simply walked back to her father, who pulled her into a quiet hug. She had done what she came for, and this was only the beginning. The sun had begun its descent, casting long shadows over the shooting range as the trophy was placed in Emma's hands. The cold metal glimmered, but it wasn't the shine that mattered. It was the silence that followed, the kind that replaces doubt with respect. Brad Carson stood off to the side, jaw tight, arms crossed. The champion title he had worn for years had just been taken away by a farm girl with an old hunting rifle. He watched her receive a round of applause that was slow to start, but quickly gained strength. Emma didn't bow. She didn't soak it in. She simply nodded and held the trophy the way one might hold a memory, close but not boastfully. John Carter couldn't hold back his emotions. He wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed at his tears. "You did good, sweetheart," he whispered as they walked back to the truck. "Your grandpa would have been real proud." As they packed up and prepared to leave, a man in a dark grey suit approached them. He wore polished shoes and a silver pin on his lapel with the insignia of the American Marksmanship League. "Emma Carter?" he asked politely. Emma turned. "Yes, sir?" "My name's George Rayner. I'm a scout with the AML. We've been watching the championship and, well, I think you just turned a few heads." Emma didn't say anything, unsure how to react. "I'd like to invite you to our national qualifiers next month in Texas," he continued. "Travel, stay, gear. It's all covered. We believe you have the kind of talent that shouldn't go unnoticed." John looked at his daughter. She looked back at him, her eyes wide. "That's very kind," she said cautiously, "but I can't afford to be away from the farm for too long. My dad needs help." George glanced at John. "Mr. Carter, with all due respect, this girl of yours is extraordinary. She has a gift. You'd be doing the world a disservice by keeping her hidden out here." John's face was torn between pride and practicality. "We'll think about it," he said. Back at home, the farm chores waited as always, feeding the animals, checking the irrigation, repairing broken fences. But something had shifted. The dust on the porch no longer seemed quite so dry. The air had a quiet hum of possibility. That night, Emma lay awake, staring at the wooden ceiling above her bed. She thought about her grandfather, who had passed the year before. She remembered the way he held the rifle, not as a weapon, but as a tool, an extension of the eye and the heart. "Respect the shot," he used to say. "It's not just about hitting a target. It's about knowing when and why." The next morning, the phone rang. It was a local news station asking for an interview. Then came a call from a sports magazine, and then a radio station. Emma declined most of them, not out of shyness, but because she had chores to do. She wasn't going to change who she was just because others had. Still, the story traveled. Farmer's daughter breaks state record, made its way into online blogs and even a couple of national headlines. The attention was strange and a bit uncomfortable. Some people thought she was a fluke. Others called her a prodigy. Emma didn't care what they called her. She just wanted to shoot. 2 weeks later, a black SUV pulled into their driveway. Out stepped Brad Carson, dressed more casually than at the championship. He removed his sunglasses and walked up to the porch where Emma was oiling her rifle. "I didn't come to argue," he said plainly. "I came to say you earned it. I was wrong to laugh." Emma looked at him, wiping her hands on a cloth. "Most people were. I've been shooting for 10 years. Brad added, "and I've never seen someone with your control. It's not just talent, you've got instincts." Emma nodded slowly. "Thanks." Brad shifted uncomfortably. "You going to Texas?" Emma hesitated. "I don't know yet." "Well," he said with a shrug, "you should. You don't owe it to anyone but yourself." With that, he turned and walked back to his car, leaving Emma in the silence of her porch. Later that week, John called Emma into the kitchen where he had been going over the farm budget. He showed her the numbers. "We'll be okay without you for a while. I talked to Mr. Halley down the road. He'll help me cover the heavier work." Emma looked at her father, realizing just how much he believed in her. A month later, Emma boarded a plane for the first time in her life. Texas was hotter, louder, and bigger than she expected. The national qualifiers were held at a state-of-the-art shooting range, surrounded by media vans, coaches, and talent scouts. But Emma stayed focused. She tuned out the noise and tuned into the wind, the breath, the target. By the end of the qualifiers, she didn't just place, she won. Sponsors reached out, shooting clubs offered her spots, colleges with competitive shooting teams extended scholarship opportunities. For the first time, Emma could see a future beyond the fences of her farm. Not because she needed to escape, but because her skill had opened a door she never thought existed. She returned home a few weeks later, the wind cooler now, the fields turning golden with the coming autumn. Her father met her at the gate, eyes glistening. "So," he said softly, "you gonna chase this dream of yours?" Emma didn't answer right away. She looked out across the fields, where she first learned to shoot. "I think it's chasing me now," she finally said. She continued to help on the farm when she could, but she also trained harder than ever. The rifle was still the same. The girl holding it wasn't. Emma Carter's name would soon become a fixture in the competitive shooting world. But for her, no medal or trophy would ever matter as much as that first dusty range, the first whispered doubts, and the steady voice of her grandfather in her head, reminding her that it's not just about hitting the mark, it's about earning it. And she had.